You People is now on Netflix, but the big question is it funny? Let's talk about it. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to the channel. I'm talking all things streaming, and the brand new movie on the platform is You People, starring Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy. This has to be funny, right? We're going to talk about it. If you enjoy this review, let me know in the comments and by dropping that like down below. Let's do it. A new couple and their families find themselves examining modern love and family dynamics amidst clashing cultures, societal expectations, and generational differences in this comedy from Kenya Barris. This film is rated R for language throughout, sexual material, and drug content, and comes to us from a director and a writer in Kenya who has brought us projects like Blackish, Black AF. Not a huge fan of Black AF, but Blackish was really funny. A writer for a movie like Girls Trip, helped out with Shaft, Grownish, and then Jonah Hill is a co-writer on this film. So you have a lot of talent at play behind the camera, and then of course in front of the camera, Eddie Murphy. He's back, baby. I hate these long periods of time that we go without Eddie Murphy because the world is just, it's not as funny when that's the case. I loved his speech at the Golden Globes, by the way, but now he's back. Gets to work and play off of Jonah Hill. You also have someone like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is hilarious. Nia Long, who we just saw in the movie Missing. Travis Bennett. And all in all, this is a great cast. A lot of this humor comes from the delivery of the dialogue, comes from those intricacies that you see in these comedians or these comedic actors that just work extremely well. Jonah Hill has that. Julia Louis-Dreyfus absolutely has that. And we know Eddie Murphy has that. So love the cast, and I really love the way that they play these characters in the film. It's a subtle type of comedy. It's dry humor, very dry. We're focusing on dialogue, we're focusing on conversations, and this guy in Ezra, who just wants to be with Amira, who just wants to impress her side of the family. But the two families, they're very different. You have a Muslim family and a Jewish family trying to come together to not only learn each other's differences, how they operate, but to come together and be okay with Ezra and Amira getting together. And for this to be a relationship that lasts for a long time, they're going to have to find a way to get along. Does that happen in the beginning? I don't want to spoil anything, but come on. We've seen these types of movies before. I think of something like Meet the Parents. I think of these comedies where there are such heavy differences between the two sides at play. Romance, a romantic comedy, if you will, but at the same time, this film has not one message, a few messages that it's trying to incorporate in this otherwise silly, subtle, but silly at the same time comedy. And I don't know if those two things came together as effortlessly as the writers wanted them to. It feels like they're trying to handle too much for what this movie is otherwise, especially when you have filmmaking that doesn't quite live up to what the cast is bringing to these characters. Again, we have a culture clash here, but we start out with Ezra's podcast where he's kind of speaking upon some of these differences. We're talking about color. We're talking about different classes, and this is handled all throughout. Some of these moments that spawned humor, I think, worked extremely well. But when they try to get a bit more serious, but humor comes from those serious moments, I don't know if it worked. I don't know if the message, while clear, I don't know if it was incorporated very well into this film to where it starts to forget about the fact that it's a comedy. Then it starts to forget about the filmmaking in its entirety because, unfortunately, while you're watching this movie, it feels like the style of a television sitcom. It feels as if it's going for more of an episodic setting, and parts of it even looks more like a television show. I don't want to use the word cheap, but I don't know if the transitions and the editing and the style of this film worked for it being a 2-hour, kind of under 2-hour type of movie. And because you're trying to fit so much into the story, a relationship that is fully formed, allowing us to get to know each individual before they get together, I didn't really buy the romance as much as I needed to, not because they don't have good chemistry, because they do, but because we get like 1 or 2 montages, and then we go 6 months in the future, and I'm like, man, I would have liked to have had more with these two together on screen rather than one montage, and we're already trying to get the family dynamic working, and I just thought they moved so quick on that. And if we could have cut down on some of the moments at the beginning to where they're trying to get that message in there, and I understand why they're attempting to do that, but the movie's a romance. I have to buy this romance. Now, thankfully, I did as it went along because they have such good chemistry with each other. I thought Lauren London did a really nice job. Jonah Hill did a really nice job. But I believe we get more Hill and Murphy than we did Hill and London, because at one point in the film, they go off on their own little adventure. And don't get me wrong, some of their conversations are hilarious, but I'm thinking, is that the actors or is it the dialogue? And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, it's the actors. The dialogue's attempting to be dry, subtle, and funny in that way. And it was funny at points, but I'm not sure if the script gave them a lot to work with, if that makes sense. I think inconsistent is a word to use with this film. The moments where they're trying to bond with each other's parents, right? Amira's attempting to bond with Shelley, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus in a car. You're going to get some hilarious stuff. Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill together in the car, really good. I look at one sequence, and I talked about the filmmaking earlier, how the transitions don't work, and it's just kind of sloppy in that way. There's a scene where Jonah Hill is playing basketball, and he's supposed to start out really bad and end up really good. You have the music, the transitions, the lack of actually showing him do something cool. And I'm thinking to myself, this is one of the more poorly edited, sloppily thrown together sequence that I've seen in quite a while. And it just came across as kind of awkward, kind of cringeworthy. And that's how this entire movie comes across at points, right? Actors, really good. Love the cast. But some of this delivery here is just a little cringeworthy. And I'm thinking to myself, that first trailer, I thought this was going to be way funnier than it actually ended up being. I love dry humor. I love dry dialogue. I actually like when Eddie Murphy takes on dry humor. It's almost the opposite of what you expect him to do. But I just don't know if the script worked out very well. And then you have this kind of revelation at the end with certain characters, and it's so conventional and so cliche. The way that it ends, it's going to warm your heart if you've been invested in both of these families this entire time. And it's hard not to get invested with the cast, but I wasn't really on board with the way this movie was playing out. It ends, and I'm like, oh, that was sweet. But how many times have I seen that ending for a movie that attempted to do something different, but inevitably just fell into the same category as most other romantic comedies? Before I give you my score, and all movies are subjective, but this style may work for some people, so let me know if that worked, if the comedy worked, and if the movie as a whole is something that you're maybe going to go back and revisit again. Thanks for watching, and again, if you want to drop a like, that'd be really cool. You People features a stacked cast that delivers on occasion, but the rest of the film suffers because of an uninteresting story and sloppy filmmaking, and unfortunately I'm going to 42% with my score. I could not hate this movie because, again, there are moments, absolutely, but as a whole, I don't ever see myself wanting to revisit it, and that is unfortunate. Come back later today. I'm watching Infinity Pool and maybe a few more movies this weekend. I'll see you soon.